Stevan Subic, I don't know why you made Zatanna so thick, but yeah, damn.
Uh, yeah, uh, yeah.
And coming completely out of left field, and when I say out of left field, I mean absolutely unexpected. I did not expect, in any way, shape, or form, to get a comic where Batman has to hunt and run the ones with a werewolf. Yet, here we are. We have Batman Full Moon. We are with book one. I believe this just released this week, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. And it's done by Rodney Barnes. If you are unfamiliar with that name, he is the writer and producer of Everybody Hates Chris, and he is also the writer and producer of the first four seasons of The Boondocks. And the art for this is done by Stevan Subic. Off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, he did the Riddler tie-in comics for Matt Reeves' The Batman, which were actually really good. If you are unaware, the Matt Reeves universe is a lot more. It's a lot more detailed than a lot of people are aware of, due to the fact that most people are only currently aware of the Penguin. No. When the Batman was going to launch, there were a lot of supplemental comic books that essentially came out that told a lot of the backstory, a little bit of the backstory for Bruce in a prequel series, but then I think a 4-issue prequel for the Riddler, which basically went from how everything went to shit in the orphanage all the way over to the point where he decided to don the mask and essentially set his entire plan in motion. It's a really, really good read if you're a fan of the Matt Reeves, the Batman universe. But back to Batman Full Moon. There is a hint of, or I should say, this is going to be my only criticism for the entire thing. If you are someone who does not like the art from Kingdom Come, where it's one of those really, really faint, hard drawn outlines or no outlines at all, but it blends the colors of the character with the colors of the background to allow the character themselves to pop a little bit more or stand out a little bit more, or for them to blend into whatever the scenery is a whole lot more. You're not going to like this book. My only complaint in regards to this book is I'm not really a fan of this art style. Now, not to say I'm not a fan of Alex Ross's art style. I fucking love Kingdom Come across the board. I just don't like the way in which this is drawn and shaded. I feel as though if the series goes on a little bit more, it might end up growing on me. But for book one, there are some really, really, really cool shots. And when I say really cool, I mean really cool. There are a ton of just werewolf shots that are fantastic. People being pulled apart, clawed out, face being ripped off. There's a really, really dope fight that happens towards the end of the book that we'll talk about in a second. And some of the ways in which Batman is done is really, really good. However, there are also shots that I feel as though are really bad. They are good in passing until you scroll back up to take a second to look at it again, and you're like, this looks goofy. And it kind of sticks with you. They kind of stick out like a sore thumb every here and there. But other than that, the art style is passable. It's not the best thing I'm reading. I still think that the best thing I've read recently with art style that I instantaneously fell in love with was Absolute Batman. And I know for damn sure I'm going to fall in with love with the art style for both Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman when both of those officially drop. But getting into the main story, it has the return of one of my favorite female heroes that really doesn't get to work with the big three as much as I wish that she would, which is Zatanna. I am a Zatanna head. I feel as though anytime I see Zatanna and she's in a relationship with anybody not called Constantine, I am absolutely fucking happy. When she's with Dick Grayson, happy. If she's with Bruce Wayne, happy. If she's with fucking Etrigan, happy. I just don't like her with Constantine at all. more or less because I love Constantine as a character, but in regards to the women in his lives, he's a dick. But in this universe, it seems as though Zatanna and Batman are in some type of relationship, or they're trying to form a relationship. And she is aware of the fact that he is Bruce Wayne. And he goes off to investigate a catastrophe that happens at a Wayne pharmaceutical building where a bunch of people essentially died. And when he arrives there, we kind of get the lay of the land in regards to how Gotham interacts with him, or at least how the government officials interact with him. He has a great relationship with Jim Gordon. He does not have a good relationship with anyone else, which is to be expected for the most part from Batman. He's loved by the police. He's essentially hated by the firefighters and everyone else who have to basically pick people up out of the rubble of whatever situation that he ends up finding himself in. But investigating the massacre at the Wayne Pharmaceutical Building, he discovers that these people weren't killed by a gun, they weren't killed by a sword, they were killed by fangs and claws. And he instantaneously goes off on the chase, being the detective that he is, to find out where exactly is this creature that caused this mayhem. And of course, within 5 seconds, he gets his ass absolutely fucking beat. Now, one of the issues that I do take with this is they establish the way in which the werewolf lore works in universe. Guy was a soldier, guy goes off, guy encounters werewolf, werewolf bites guy, slashes guy survives, ends up in the hospital, and when he comes out of the hospital 2 weeks later, he turns into a werewolf and he massacres his family. Cool. That is standard werewolf lore, and now he's essentially trying to look for a cure, but him looking for a cure is causing nothing but death, carnage, and mayhem wherever he decides to go. Cool. When you read this first book, you will see a few times Batman getting absolutely fucked up. I mean, giant gash across the chest, giant gash across the back. He gets bit towards the end of this initial book, this initial run. And I'm like, okay, is Batman going to turn into a werewolf? Is something going to happen on the side? Is he being magically protected by Zatanna in some way, shape, or form? I don't know. But from the very first slash, and from the time frame that we essentially get, it sets up this book to lead us into a very, very interesting situation, because there's a conversation that happens that I enjoy. And it's the return of Man-Bat, where he's working for Wayne Pharmaceuticals, basically trying to find a cure not only for himself but also for this lycanthropy. And he says to Batman, essentially, we don't ever erase our monsters, we just suppress them. And of course, later on, we see him burst through the window of the church as Man-Bat to essentially fight the werewolf. I feel as though this is a setup for something that's going to occur later on down the line, because we know that there's a 2 week time frame with this whole infection, where after 2 weeks the person changes and they become a werewolf themselves. Just the way in which we still have the Justice League Vampire War that's currently happening on the side, which is another comic I'm definitely going to fucking read. I do not know when I'm going to get to it, but it's definitely something that is on my radar. I'm really hoping that we get into a situation where this infection kind of sort of spreads, or it's an infection that Batman himself thinks that he can maybe suppress and control in some way, shape, or form, and it causes nothing but chaos throughout Gotham, where the magical community has to come together to probably put Batman down. But we'll see. We will see whether or not that is the direction that this story chooses to go in. But so far, Batman Werewolf, Batman Werewolf, Batman Full Moon completely has my attention. This is only book one. If book one's dropping now, I would assume with typical release schedules that book two is definitely going to drop sometime around this time next month. Please be a monthly release. I hate bi-monthly releases. I hate 6 month um comic book releases, because after 6 months I've completely forgotten what happened in that first book, and you trying to spin the block and come back to explain to me what happened is not going to help in any way, shape, or form. I'm looking at you, Infinity Clock, and the entire Dr. Manhattan Superman's dad story that you tried you guys spread out over like 2 years. Horrible idea. Horrible idea in every way, shape, and form. But let me know if you guys are going to be checking this one out. Like I said, I get my books from Amazon Kindle, and if I don't get them from Kindle, then there's a comic book shop that I can just go to and get them from there. I am not even sure whether or not that one comic book app we used to use back in the days is still in existence. Kindle made everything just so convenient. Just a simple click, and it goes straight to my friggin' phone, or it goes straight to my iPad, and I can just scroll through it and be absolutely fucking happy. But let me know whether or not you guys are going to be checking this out. Comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.